In this video, I'm going to cover how to get some of the best pals in the game at a very early level to make your playthroughs as seamless as possible. This way, you know which pals you should not be skipping out on as you get further along in progression. There's 137 pals in the game, so it's definitely a good idea to know which ones are a complete waste of time and which ones are incredibly worth pursuing. If there's anything I missed that you think I should have included, leave a comment and I'll respond to it as quickly as I can. Without further ado, let's get into the early game pals. Guildclaw has a glider you unlock at level 23, and it's better than any of the craftable gliders you unlock throughout the entire game. It's just an excellent pal to round out your party if you're not using that 5th slot, and can make moving around the game so much easier. Whenever you're running around on foot, just double jump to glide instead of just running. It'll make it much faster and more fun to traverse the world. You might consider an alternative like Hang You, but he's just simply not as good as Guildclaw. And the reason for this is because of the way people use gliders in this game. You use gliders to move in a short burst faster or to save yourself from fall damage. And in these two specific use cases, Guildclaw is miles better than Hang You and easier to acquire. The easiest way to get Guildclaw is to just simply breed Rushroar with a Capriti or an Eikthyr, or to breed Incineram from one of your raids that you get hit with a Lamball or a Kadava. Penking is an exceptional pal early in the game as well because of his farming abilities. He has so many work suit abilities, consisting of watering, handiwork, mining, cooling, and transporting, all being level 2. Me and my friend had this guy running around our base until late game because he just covers so many areas that you need in your base. Simply fight the boss to beat him. There's not really an easy way to breed for him earlier, and he's only level 15. The only advice I can really give for fighting this guy is to kill the Pangolus before the Pen King, especially if you're lower level than him. It makes the fight a lot easier. Digtoys is a level 3 miner that is an extremely useful pal for the entire game. Even though he's only level 3, he's actually used in a lot of farms at the end game because it's his only work trait. This means he doesn't get in the way of everything else trying to do multiple tasks. He just sits there and he mines. He does his job, he doesn't get in the way, and it's really efficient for your base, even though he's a little bit slower. The easiest way to get Digtoys is simply to breed Nightwing with Killamari. Killamari can be found in these 2 dungeons on screen. You might be nervous to go inside the dungeon, but don't worry. If you catch a Killamari, you can easily just DC and it'll put you back at the front of the dungeon, or you can just clear the dungeon, because if you've already caught a Nightwing, you're strong enough to clear any dungeon that has Killamari in it. The last pal I'll mention for the early game is B-Guard, which is great for farming honey to make all the cakes that you're going to need to breed all the stuff I've talked about in this video. B-Guard can be an absolute pain in the ass to catch though, so here's how I recommend going about it. On screen now, you'll see a list of every single pal that normal Verdant eggs can drop in the game. You'll notice that most of the pals listed are extremely common and you've seen a million of them already. I would advise going about B-Guard by catching every single one of the pals that are super common in the normal Verdant eggs, and then going in the Elizabeth area on the map and farming Verdant eggs and hatching them yourself. The way open world eggs work in this game is that they'll give you something that you do not have a full set of 10 of yet. So if you have 10 caught of everything else in the Verdant egg, you would be guaranteed to have the B-Guard drop from the egg. Those are all the ones I wanted to go into detail about for the early game, but there's a few other pals that are extremely useful that I just didn't think deserved an entire section because they're so simple to acquire. Chickpea is good for eggs for farming for cakes. Mazzarina is good for milk for the exact same reason. Flampel is good for flame organs if you need those. Clovis farms a lot of wool, and Vixie can drop pal spheres, which is really good for the early game farming because you need to catch 10 of each pal. With all that out of the way, let's get into the middle game pals. Fangalope is the best ground mobility mount in the game for so long. He comes equipped with incredible movement speed, a great Cloud Tempest ability that makes him dash really far really fast, and a double jump. You unlock his saddle at level 26, and nothing is faster than him until level 38. To get him incredibly easily, just breed Direhowl and Malpaka together. What I did was I bred a Direhowl and a Malpaka together to get a runner plus Swift Fangalope in the early game, and it was the best decision I made in my entire 200-hour playthrough. That's not an exaggeration. Fangalope genuinely makes that much of a difference. While Fangalope is amazing, Anubis is probably the best overall pal in the game. Anubis comes equipped with level 4 handiwork, level 3 mining, and level 2 transporting, making him one of the best worker pals in the entire game. He's actually so good that it's worth making 2 different Anubises, one for working around the base and one for fighting with you. Everybody online keeps saying the easiest way to get Anubis is just to breed a Bushi with a Pen King, but that just simply isn't the case. Breed Celery with Relaxaurus instead. You can catch a million Celery anywhere in the water, and you can get really good passive traits incredibly easily. I don't see the benefit in waiting for Pen King and Bushi to respawn once every hour to wait for rolls, when you can just catch 15 Celery every 10 minutes to get the best passive traits in the game really quickly. Relaxaurus is not as easy to catch, but he's still much faster to catch than a Bushi that respawns once an hour or a Pen King that spawns once an hour. You will have to breed off the Glutton trait that comes with every Relaxaurus, but that's not a huge deal. If you're going to take anything away from this video, invest time into getting a working Anubis. The handiwork is just a lifesaver throughout the entire game. So many things take so long to build. Having him around, having him in your party ready to throw out to craft anything you're trying to craft is insanely worth it. I think I've probably saved myself 10 hours, not exaggerating, using Anubises to craft stuff for me. Beacon is an electric type flying pal that people seem to like using as a mount. The problem with Beacon as a mount is that Beacon's saddle unlocks at level 34. While this doesn't sound terrible in itself, there's another pal that you get the saddle for at level 38 who is just better than Beacon. I'll talk about that pal later in the video though, so stay tuned. What I would use Beacon for though is farming your generator at the base, which starts at level 26. The easiest way I think to get him is just to catch his boss, which is level 29 in this area of the map. There might be an easier way to breed for this guy, but by the time you're at the level where you need the generator and therefore needing Beacon, you can just use your Anubis to fight him. It's gonna be a cakewalk. The other reason I'd recommend fighting the alpha boss for Beacon instead of just breeding for him is that you'll give yourself a lot of chances to get the legendary handgun schematic, which is incredibly strong until you get the pump shotgun. For the basic Yormungtide, he's one of the strongest water fighting pals in the game and is a level 4 waterer for your base. Both of the Yormungtides are big and get in the way a lot, so make sure your base is organized in a smart manner so that they can actually get their tasks done. They're both worth reorganizing your base for. The easiest way to get Yormungtide is to breed Nightwing with a Grizzbolt, who can be found on the first Sanctuary Island. Just a note for the rest of the video, if I ever say something is on the Sanctuary, it might be a rare spawn, so if you don't see it when you go to the island, just fly away until all the pals are unrendered and then fly back into the radius and you'll get a whole new set of pals to look through. Yormungtide's water typing is really good too because a lot of the strong pals in this game are fire types, and having a water type that can counter those guys is incredibly valuable, especially at the late game. Similarly to Yormungtide, Yormungtide Ignis is a really good pal as well. As you may have guessed based on the name, Yormungtide Ignis has level 4 kindling. As good as the basic Yormungtide is, Yormungtide Ignis is absolutely better. Kindling fast is way more valuable than watering fast in the long run. Yormungtide is also a really good fire pal for fighting, but he isn't the strongest option there is out there. The only way to get this guy, unless you're able to catch a level 40 something Yormungtide Ignis, which I don't recommend because having the level 4 kindling throughout the game is a really big time saver, is to find a huge dragon egg on the volcanic section of the map. Generally speaking, you'll find these eggs on the outskirts. I haven't really found them on the volcano or really close to the volcano ever, but if you go on the rocks that stick out of the water around the outskirts of the volcanic island, you should be able to find a huge dragon egg relatively quickly, and that is guaranteed to give you a Yormungtide Ignis. Lylene is the jack of all trades in Palworld. She comes with planting at level 4, medicine and handiwork at level 3, and gathering at level 2. It's just simply a really well-rounded base pal that is absolutely worth having. It's not really necessary to have 100% optimized crop harvesting, but it is helpful if you're trying to farm a lot of cakes to make a really strong pal. Also, that level 3 medicine is more helpful than it sounds. Not many pals in the game are that strong with the medicine crafting station, and those crafts can take a long time. The best way to get her is just to breed Mosanda and Battalia together. Wumpo is the best transporter and lumberer in the entire game. Wumpo Baton is also really good, but Wumpo is easier to get, so I'm going to talk about how to get him in this video. The best way to get Wumpo is to breed Penking and Sweepa together, which should be really easy considering these pals spawn at level 11 and level 15 as alpha bosses. Wumpo's a really large pal, so I'd consider making your base in a way that he doesn't get stuck on everything as he's trying to maneuver about transporting the resources. He also has level 2 cooling and handiwork, so I'd recommend having pals that are better at both of those traits so you don't have him getting in the way of everybody else. Warsect is another great base pal that can also kick ass in a fight. He's one of the most tanky non-legendaries in the game, and is also a versatile base pal. He has level 3 transporting, level 2 lumbering. Know that there's no level 4 lumberers in the game currently, so he's a solid option for both of those, as well as coming with level 1 handiwork and planting. His health and defense stats are ridiculously high, making him an exceptionally good option if you need a tank in your next fight. To get him most easily, just breed Cinnamoth and Grizzbolt. Now that we're done with the extensive mid-game pals that you can acquire, it's time to get into the late-game pals. I'll start off the late game with Phalaris, who is the best flyer for speed from level 38 to 49. Everyone says get Shadowbeak or just use Ragnarok or Suzaku because of the difference in speed not being super huge and the others offering cold resistance or extra strength. But Phalaris with the right rules is absolutely insane. Considering how easy this guy is to get, you're going to have all game to breed up a perfectly traded Phalaris for yourself by the time you're able to ride it. The combo for this guy is just to breed together Vanworm and Anubis. Phalaris also spawns in Sanctuary number 3, but I would just breed to get better traits. Astragon is an exceptional late game miner, being level 4 in that stat, and also has level 1 handiwork to boot. He's a dark dragon type, which is decent, but his attack and defense stats are ridiculously high, making him a great fighting option. To get Astragon most easily, breed a Cryolynx and a Grizzbolt together, or a Cryolynx and a Helzifer. He's also a rare spawn on Sanctuary 3, but I would probably avoid pursuing him in this manner. I'd either go for the alpha version of the pal to get better stats, or just breed to get better work traits. The last non-legendary I'll mention in this video is Orzer. The breeding combo to get him is Grizzbolt and Relaxaurus, so he's incredibly easy to get. He's the best electric pal in the game and has a dragon electric typing, which is really useful for fighting. His passive ability giving you more drops from water pals is incredibly useful for farming pal fluids later in the game when you need a million cement for every sphere. He's also the highest tier power generating pal in the game, so putting him in your base to work is also incredibly effective. He also spawns on Sanctuary 3, so if you're later in the game, you could just go and catch him. You might be thinking to yourself that you should be going for better traits on this guy, but I would probably just not waste the time. He pretty much does everything that he's good at without really needing any traits, and farming extra drops from water pals isn't relevant based on what traits they have. Now to get into the legendary pals. I'm not going to get into what these guys do in this video super in-depthly just because it's been covered so many times in other videos, but I'll tell you my general advice for how you should go about catching these guys in a certain order that'll make your life a lot easier. I would start by catching a frost stallion. Use something like a flame crossbow or flame grenades to set this guy on fire a lot, and it's going to be a cakewalk to get through the entirety of the fight. He takes nearly 80 damage a tick by being burned, so if you burn him about 7 to 10 times, he's going to be really low on HP and you'll be able to catch him pretty easily. Once you catch the frost stallion, use its ice typing to go take on Jetragon. Jetragon's a really strong pal and is generally speaking a very difficult fight. But if you use Frost Stallion's entire kit effectively, this fight is a cakewalk. When you attack on the back of a Frost Stallion, your attacks turn to ice moves, which is super effective against Jetragon. So using a mix of Frost Stallion's moves as well as your own weapons is incredibly effective in this fight. Once you catch Jetragon, go to the desert and catch Necromus overnight, so you only have to fight one of these at a time. They're not necessarily super difficult, but Jetragon is super effective against Necromus, and after you catch Necromus, you can use the Necromus to fight the Pallades, which is also super effective, so you've just gone through all the legendaries in the game with super effective attacks. Before I end off this video, I want to mention a few things that I didn't really touch upon yet that I think are important. Catching the Alpha Boss is generally never the easiest way to get a great pal, besides panking and the legendaries in this case. But will give you the highest end results if you're looking for the pal to be a fighter. Alphas simply have better base stats than non-alpha pals, and you cannot overcome this by breeding any type of trait. Breeding will never get you an alpha pal. Even if you breed 2 alphas together, you will not get an alpha as a child. Also, make sure your base pals are non-alphas because the alphas are just larger and it takes up a lot more space in your base, which already makes pathing even more of a nightmare. I'd really appreciate it if you considered subscribing and liking the video. If you have any other tutorial requests, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to help out in any way I can. This has been Jace, and I hope to see you again next time.